Brand new polling tonight from Suffolk University and USA Today on impeachment, finding a stark partisan divide. 70% of Democrats and 8% of Republicans say the House should vote to impeach now. But here is where it gets really interesting. Among independents, 22% would impeach. 34% say the House should continue investigating but not impeach. 36% say the House should drop the investigations altogether. That means a plurality of independents are not supporting impeachment at this time, not even close. For reaction tonight, let's bring in 2020 Democratic presidential candidate and impeachment backer, Tom Steyer. Good to have you with us on Fox News at Night.
Shannon, thank you for having me.
What do you make there of the case that you need to make? It sounds like the president's base is not going to go along with this, but independents are a key critical group. I mean, the numbers are still low. They're not convinced on impeachment.
Shannon, my point about this has always been, let's put the evidence in front of the American people. I've always said this was about patriotism and people deciding for themselves what's right and wrong. And so I want to have televised hearings so the American people, Democrats, Republicans, and independents can see for themselves, can judge for themselves. What I believe in is democracy. And that's what I've been pushing for from the very beginning. I want these people to be testifying on TV so the American people as a whole can see the exact same facts, can see the exact same witnesses and draw their own conclusions, because that's what I believe in.
Do you think that people are pretty much dug in on their position with this? Or as we're moving towards the Democrats say now we are going to move towards those public hearings, probably mid-November or a little bit later, do you think that's going to convince those who are already dug in on their positions?
I do. Look, I think Americans are going to look at this and draw their own conclusions, and that's always been my point, is that the court that matters is the court of public opinion, that it's in a democracy, it's the people's will that should rule and must rule, and that's why I've been pushing from the beginning. Let us see the evidence. Let us judge the evidence. That's what's going to determine the outcome, and that's what should determine the outcome in a democracy.
Okay, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, talking about this tonight as Speaker Pelosi moves forward. Here's his thought.
She can probably pass this resolution if she's suicidal, but she's going to kill their majority. You go out into marginal districts held by Democrats that Trump either carried or came close. There's not support for this.
What do you make of that argument that these swing districts, actually, the Democrats could lose them if they move forward with this?
You know, I don't believe that for a second, Shannon. I think that the American people are going to see corruption on its face. I think that it's not a question of what party you're in. I think it's a question about patriotism and the country, and that's what I expect. And so I think what Newt Gingrich is saying doesn't hold water for me at all. In fact, I think this is going to be something I believe this can be the rebirth of democracy, that in fact we can pull together as a country and decide together. And that's what I expect will happen. And that's what I think is what should happen. And that's why I've been pushing for it for so long.
Okay. And as you said, this will go public and then the American people will see what's out there and make their own decisions. Okay. I want to ask you, interesting, Kanye West is out there making a lot of noise with his new album and talking about his newly found religious faith, but also talking about the fact that he thinks Democrats have been pushing the black community to abortions and things that are negative for them as a whole. Gianno Caldwell, who works here at Fox, is a young African-American conservative himself, tweeting this. He says, Kanye West is absolutely correct. Democrats have encouraged through policy and their own words the abortion of black babies. Margaret Sanger, Planned Parenthood founder, designed Planned Parenthood with the intent to kill black babies as well as immigrants. Like it or not, this is factual. I mean, Kanye says, listen, I don't care who thinks anything about what I have to say. This is what I have to say. What do you make of him making that statement about Democrats?
I really don't know and understand where Kanye West is coming from. And I don't know Kanye West, and I'd never heard that statement before. What I know is that the African-American community has been the moral center of this country, not for decades, but for much longer than that. And I think that if you go back through history and see who's been on the right side of the big debates in this country consistently, who has actually led from a moral standpoint, it's been the African-American community. So when I see a question like any kind of question of right and wrong, I try and make sure I understand where the leaders of that community are coming out, because they've been right for so long. And I think they've led in a way that hasn't been recognized. And I look to that community for leadership on every moral question there is.
Okay, quickly, what is your pitch or your outreach to the African-American community? They may say, look, this guy is a rich white guy. He's been very successful. He has succeeded in America on many fronts. What does he know about my issues and my understanding of things that are important to my community?
Look, for the last 7 years, I've traveled around this country full time to talk to people, to look them in the eye, so that, in fact, I can understand where people from all different parts of this country and every background have come from. So in fact, what I see in this country has been really a need to return to a much more just country, and that includes specifically calling out the racism that exists deeply across policy areas in our society. So in fact, when I look, I'm someone who people think of as a climate activist, but in every single energy, pollution, climate bill proposition that I've been involved with, we started with environmental justice. We've started with low-income communities, black and brown communities, where the pollution has always been concentrated in this country, air, bad air, unsafe drinking water, and made sure that the leadership in terms of policy and execution has come from those communities. So in fact, I think in every single policy area, it's absolutely important to look and see where in fact the traditional intrinsic racism in America shows up, and to make sure that as you're dealing with that issue, you're dealing with the underlying injustice that's existed for so long.
We've sparked a lot of interesting conversations. We'll see you, I think, in the next debate. In the meantime, we'll see you on the campaign trail. So, Tom Steyer, thank you.
Shannon, sweet to be here with you.
Good to have you.